You are good.
All right, welcome everyone to this regular council meeting of Warwick Township Council for April 4th, 2022. I'll call the meeting to order and remind everyone to please disclose of any pecuniary interest they may have at the appropriate time. We have the first item on the agenda, which is the minutes of the previous council meeting. We need a mover and a seconder to receive and file those minutes. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Westgate. Any questions, comments, errors, or omissions? All in favor of receiving and filing those minutes? That is carried. There's no business arising from the previous meeting, so we'll go right to the scheduled meetings and events. We do have one schedule change that is requested there. So the special council meeting development scheduled for Wednesday, May 4th at 6 p.m. and that Warwick Township Council approves the rescheduling of the regular council meeting on May 2nd to Monday, April 25th at 6 p.m. And that Warwick Township Council approves the scheduling of the special council meeting on Wednesday, May 4th. Do we have a mover and a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Morris and Councillor Mitchell. Any questions or concerns about that change? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. I'm sure staff will change that on our calendars for us. And just a reminder that I believe that AMO is open for registration now. It's not on the agenda, but if anyone is interested in attending that, please contact our staff. And we'll move on to councillor commitments and items. Does anyone have any items they would like to add to the calendar today? Councillor Morris.
August 6th to the 13th.
Okay, good. Glad to hear that you're getting away. Anyone else? Councillor Westgate and then Councillor White.
June 6th to the 12th and July 2nd to the 9th.
Okay.
And I'll be away earlier in June, but I don't know which week yet.
All right. And Councillor White.
July 25th to August 8th.
Great.
Yep.
Perfect. If staff would mind adding to mine just the times that I'm going to be away at Good Roads coming up. Well, that one doesn't really have to be added, I guess, but just be aware. And FCM in June, and I will be attending AMO as well. So if that's everything, we'll go on to councillor items. We will start with Councillor Mitchell today.
Sorry about that. Nothing for me, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor White, do you have anything for council?
Nothing today. No.
All right. Councillor Morris?
Yes, this is for Andrew. Quaker Road from Egremont to the 402. I couldn't even get the pickup down it. It's so bad. That's the road the county is using to put up their new sign. I'd like Andrew to maybe put together a plan, how he plans to get that back up at least with half the road. Like, it doesn't have to be very good because it's not got a lot of traffic, but it's not even passable.
I'll have a look. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Morris. I did notice when I was going down the 402, they were bringing in machinery for the new sign. So that's exciting. Anything else today, Councillor Morris?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right. And Councillor Westgate?
I had nothing today.
Okay. The only thing I had was I just was fortunate enough to attend the Watford Skating Club's annual carnival on Saturday, and I was amazed once again at how amazing the show was and the talent in our community. We are so very blessed. Special thank you to all the skaters, coaches, and parent volunteers who were able to make this show so magical. I also wanted to give a little bit of a shout out to one of the skaters in our community, Miss Emily Van Gorp. Emily had a very, very successful competition season this year. I just wanted to bring it to council's attention that she qualified for the advanced provincials competition where she placed first in the short star and short star 9 and first in long gold women's, which is an amazing accomplishment for someone from our community. So we're very proud of Emily, and we wish her the best of luck in everything that she does going forward. So that was the only thing I had. So we will move on to staff items. And we don't have anything on the agenda, but I believe Amanda has a staff item for us today.
Thank you, Mayor Rumboats, for that addition. I actually have two updates for council. One is just to confirm that our two council members who had requested bookings for AMO, we did complete that today and reserved hotel rooms. You'll receive some confirmations via email. We did have some trouble with the rooms for the Saturday night, but we will confirm with you directly. Just wanted to let you know that was done. My second item is related to operations in COVID-19, our current environment. So as you know, previously the township had implemented a mandatory vaccination policy for our township staff. Effective today, based on guidance from the County of Lambton and Lambton Public Health, we have suspended that policy. What that means is that our policy allowed members of staff who had not shown proof of vaccination to complete weekly testing using a rapid test. And so for the time being, the policy suspended, meaning they would no longer have to undertake that weekly rapid test. And of course, we'll continue to monitor with the County of Lambton and Lambton Public Health should any changes in that application of the policy need to be made. I just wanted to make council aware of that operational change. And relatedly, council has for itself approved a policy for mandatory vaccinations for itself as elected officials and for our board members. As we look towards resuming in-person meetings soon, a report on the township office is forthcoming on this agenda, but very soon in April is something I wanted to flag for you. This policy for council is approved by council, and as such, unlike the staff policy, I can't just say it doesn't apply anymore. It would require a council direction or motion. In terms of our council members, what it would mean when we return to in-person meetings, should the policy continue to apply, would be that if they were held at, say, the arena or a public facility, the testing would not be a requirement 7 days in advance. And that's just due to the nature of it's a public building and that's not a requirement. However, it would potentially continue to apply in our council chambers. So that's something I wanted to bring to your attention. And should you wish to suspend that policy as well, you are welcome to do so. I just wanted to flag it.
Okay. Do we have any interest in making a motion to suspend that policy to go along with our staff? Thank you, Councillor Morris. Do we have a seconder to that? Thank you, Councillor Westgate. Any questions or comments on that? All in favor of suspending that motion? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. All right, council, we will move on. We have no delegations or timed events tonight, so we will go on to the accounts GL report. We need a motion to receive and file that report. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Morris. Any questions or comments on that report? Mr. Jarrett, do you have anything you'd like to highlight for council today?
No, it's pretty clean.
All right, thank you. All in favor of receiving and filing that? That is carried. Thank you. We will move on to the non-action correspondence. Is there anything anyone on council would like to highlight from that non-action correspondence tonight? Councillor Morris.
Yeah, just a question. The resolution regarding joint and severe liability, several liability reform, we've already supported that, have we not? I thought
Yes.
so. Thank you.
No problem. Sorry about that. My dogs have have a cold right now. They're all snuffly, so we might hear that sometime throughout the meeting. I apologize. The one thing I did want to highlight for council that I found extremely interesting was the Blue Water Recycling Association's update to council. I don't know if any of you had an opportunity to read that, but there is a big move now to add a stream to the collections and to pick up what is it, compostable waste.
Wet waste, I think they call it.
Yeah, thank you. And if that does happen, that's going to impact our community somewhat, because the garbage that will be collected and put in our facility won't be as smelly. So that's a positive for our community, I think. And I just wanted to highlight that the Blue Water Recycling Association has gone to almost 50% of their trucks are now powered by natural gas as opposed to diesel, which is a good thing considering the price of diesel has raised so much in the last little bit. So just a couple of things to bring to council's attention there. Anything else that we wanted to discuss from the non-action? All in favor of receipt? Did I get a motion to receive and file? Moved by Councillor Westgate, seconded by Councillor White. Thank you. All in favor of receiving and filing the remainder of the correspondence. Thank you. And we'll go on to the action correspondence. I'll just go down the list, and anybody wants to support or discuss anything, just please speak up. The first is 04-31. Councillor White.
I think we should support that.
Okay.
Support that resolution.
Thank you. And Councillor Morris, did you want to second that?
Yes, I do, but it did, the resolution doesn't really say much.
Yeah, I think we could get more detail, but I think it's funding.
Yeah, I think so too, but I guess I want to second it, but I just was not just 100% sure exactly what they're asking for.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, we can write our own resolution similar to it, but I guess it's best if we support this one and then it gains some momentum. Councillor Westgate?
If it's just for funding, that's different, but I thought when I read it that it was asking that the government would not necessarily take over a cemetery. And if they do not take it over, then who does?
Yeah.
And I think it's up to the community to take them over if nobody else is looking after them. I wouldn't want to rely on the federal government or the provincial government to look after our cemeteries in our area.
No.
That is a
If
good
it's getting funding, that's different, but I don't think the way I read it, it was for funding.
Yeah, it says call for government action concerning the current legislation and regulations surrounding municipal requirements to take over and maintain abandoned operating cemeteries. It does not say anything about funding for maintaining those cemeteries. Councillor Morris.
I'm wondering if we should get a hold of the municipality of Mississippi Mills for a little better explanation before we maybe do support this. I misread it. So I'm not too, these abandoned cemeteries, I'm like Councillor Westgate, I think we need to take care of them. But the ones that are coming from churches, the diocese has a lot of money in them, and I think we need to have some support from the church's diocese that give the cemetery to us, I guess, basically.
Councillor Westgate.
Most times when if it's a church cemetery, we do get what money they have in reserves to look after it.
I don't know if there's any requirements for that though, is there? I guess if they have no money.
It depends on how it's set up, whether they have a cemetery board or not.
Councillor White?
Yeah, I was just saying the reserves are questionable because some don't have any, you know.
Yeah. Well, we know that this is definitely an issue with a lot of the rural churches closing and cemeteries are being absorbed by the municipalities. How do we want to proceed then? Do we want staff direction and maybe a report at the next council meeting?
That's what I'd like to see.
Okay, that's great. We will go with that. Then I don't think we need an official motion then. Okay. Do we need to table this? Now that it's a motion on the floor, I believe we do.
If you'd like, Mayor Roberts, when you receive and file the court action correspondence, you can leave this number out for -31, and we'll take that staff direction and carry it over to the next meeting.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so there's 04-32. 04, oh, sorry.
I think we should support that as a community. It's pretty terrible what's going on in the Ukraine at this moment in time.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Morris? Any questions or comments on that? All in favor of supporting that? That is carried. And 04-33. Very excited to see this one on the agenda. Councillor White, did you want to make
Just
that?
support it. Yeah, just make the motion. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And a seconder for that, Councillor Mitchell. And for those watching that don't have the agenda right in front of them, that is a motion to support the Watford Elphinstone Road Race this year. So anybody who's interested in that, I know the registration for that is open, and we're excited to see the athletes coming through town again this year. And all in favor of supporting that? That is carried. I just want to take a moment to just thank our Optimist Club for taking over that event. That is a big undertaking, and we rely on our Optimist Club for a lot of things, and we're very grateful for them for supporting and running that event, as well as the next one on the agenda, which is the Watford Optimist Club request for use of facilities and assistance for beach bump volleyball tournament this year. So we need a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Mitchell and Councillor White. Questions or comments on that? All in favor of that? Mr. Chamney, you're going to have a lot of fun with that, with our Optimist Club this year, helping out with that event. It's a really exciting event that we have in our community. All right. We need a motion to receive and file the remainder of the correspondence, aside from the one at the very beginning. Councillor Mitchell and Councillor Westgate, all in favor. That is carried. Thank you. We're going to move on to staff reports. And the first one is a project update on the township office building. We need a mover and a seconder to receive that as information, that report as information. Councillor Morris and Councillor Mitchell, any questions or comments on that? Perhaps Amanda would like to give an update to the community on that. It's very exciting.
Thank you, Mayor Rombouts. I appreciate that. I just wanted to, you're right, take the opportunity to advise council and our viewers that the new municipal office in Watford will be officially open as of Tuesday, April 19th. We will be moving the location on Thursday. Oh, it says Tuesday in the report, but it's Thursday, April 14th, which is right before the Easter long weekend. To council, for your information, we will be closing the municipal office for the duration of that Thursday. And of course, we'll circulate public notice of that as well. We're currently in the process of planning the move and the reopening, as well as fitting receptions, including one for council, which is tentatively planned to be held on your first council meeting, which is now, I believe, April 25th, and an open house. Now, we have had some discussions on an open house date, and I know initially I've heard some feedback that our first date of opening at the office on the 19th might be appropriate. We do have some operational challenges that day. with resourcing and also all of the art. We are preparing some historic art for the new facility, will not be in on time. So I was just looking to get some feedback from council on potentially postponing it to our second week of operations, or would you prefer, if there's a strong preference to still proceed, we certainly can. Just know that some of those pieces might be missing. I think what I'd propose would be the following week we'd open on the 19th, so sometime during the week of the 25th, if that was acceptable.
And of course, regardless of when the open house is, once the office is open, the public will be welcome to come in and do all their business. It's just that we'll have an open house day where the public can take a quick tour of the building and see how exciting it is, and maybe hear a little bit about the historical aspects of the building as well. What is council's preference? Councillor White, did you?
I would agree with Amanda that it might be good to kind of do just the soft opening, and then once you feel you're prepared to do a final open house. So.
Yeah, I'm seeing from the rest of council, I guess we'll take that as staff direction then.
Sure.
It looks like we have agreements with the rest of council, so I think that's good. Any other questions or comments on that report? All in favor of receiving and filing that for information? That is carried. And we all look forward to that. We have a couple of housekeeping items here for the 2022 municipal election and updates on that. We need a mover and a seconder to receive and file those for information. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Westgate. Any questions or comments on that? Councillor Morris. Councillor Morris, you are muted.
It said that I read in here where the nomination date started, but I didn't see anything of where it's done.
That is a good question.
That is a great question, Councillor Morris, and I would have to confirm back with you on the date.
My guess is that staff is furiously looking at
19th.
that date. August 19th.
Yes, our deputy clerk staged me August 19th. So nominations will be open from May 2nd to August 19th for the election. Thank you, Heather. Thank you.
That is an efficient staff we have there. And so when does lame duck start? Does that start on the nomination day start, or is that at August 19th that council would go into lame duck if that's required?
Great question. Moving into lame duck completely depends on how many candidates are nominated, right? So it's dependent on of our current incumbents on council, how many of them become nominated, and that would dictate when it could apply. So if, say, the majority or a quorum of council nominated themselves on May 2nd, then we would be in lame duck immediately. If it wasn't until August 19th or any date in between, it would be on those dates.
Okay, that's great. Just for anybody's interest who's watching on YouTube, if you're watching our council meeting on YouTube, you might be interested in running for council. So there is some valuable information on the agenda included there, as well as some information about an upcoming information session for anyone who's interested in running for council. Any other questions or comments on that? All in favor of receiving and filing that report for information? That is carried. And we will go to the updated policy on use of corporate resources for the election purposes. We need a mover and a seconder for that report. Councillor Morris and Councillor White, questions or comments on that report? I think it's pretty self-explanatory. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is the establishment of an alcohol management committee. So there is a motion that that we establish an alcohol management committee for the Township of Warwick, and that staff be directed to move forward in establishing an alcohol management committee for the Township of Warwick. Do we have a mover for that resolution? Councillor Mitchell and Councillor Westgate. Perhaps somebody from staff wants to elaborate a little bit on the necessity of that committee and how the makeup would be.
Certainly, Mayor Rumba. So thank you for that. This committee would be established in an effort to ensure that our alcohol-related services at our municipal facilities would continue to be in compliance with our insurer requirements, as well as the general law and regulations. The establishing of this committee came about following some discussions with one of our providers, the Optimist Club, on some challenges they were having with their insurance. And after consulting with our insurer, once we bring them, establishing this committee would allow us to bring the Optimist formally into our fold as a volunteer providing that service on behalf of the municipality, and also allow proactive review of our policies and any issues. And in so doing that, they would be able to come under the fold of municipal insurance. So it's something that we'd be looking to include the Warwick Fire Association, who also provides services, as well as the Optimist Club, so that we can proactively make sure our events are insured, and also we're reviewing any issues or anything that might arise.
That is great. Any questions for staff today? All in favor of establishing that committee of council? That is carried. And we will move on to the renewal of the Brook Elvingston Fire Agreement. There's a motion on the floor. We need a mover and a seconder for that. Thank you, Councillor Westgate and Councillor Mitchell. Any questions or comments? And I'll note that our Watford Fire Chief has signed off on this, as well as the Brook Elvingston Chief. So that's always a good news story for council. All in favor of that? That is carried. Thank you. And we'll go on to a similar one, is the renewal of the fire inspector contract with Steve Gay. Is that the right pronunciation? Okay, thank you. We need a mover and a seconder for that. Thank you, Councillor Morris and Councillor Mitchell. Questions or comments on that? Councillor Westgate.
There was talk about him retiring. Has he been asked whether he'd do it or not?
Yes, Mayor, Councillor Westgate, great question. We did consult with Mr. Gay prior to creating this contract, and he was on board to enter into this contract for this term.
Okay, that's great.
Great news. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And we'll go to the quarterly update from the Economic Development and Promotions Specialist. We need a mover and a seconder to receive and file that update. Councillor Morris and Councillor White. Any questions or comments on that update? Anything that Ms. Catrice would like to highlight for council today?
Hi, Mayor Rumboats. Yes, actually, working on the branding for the township, we're starting to figure out some new communications pieces, obviously tying in with our move to the new township office. So with that, it's going to be promotional materials, welcome to Warwick guide, and in that, I just wanted to get council's direction and their thoughts about whether they want to keep the existing slogan, a community in action, and also in regards to the existing logos. So we do have a scripted logo and a circular logo, and I like them both. And I think there's a different use for each of them depending on what we're putting out. But I am wondering if council is open to a refreshed version of the circular logo, keeping with the theme, the circle, and the same color scheme as well. But just wondering if council feels that it's time to refreshen it as we move forward.
Okay, council, we'll deal with those questions one at a time. I guess we'll start with the first question, which was
The slogan.
the slogan. Thank you. So our slogan traditionally has been a community in action. What does council think? Councillor Morris?
I think we're still in action. I want to keep it.
Any other comments on that? You know what? I agree with you, Miss Councillor Morris. When I first got on council, I was like, why do we have this as our slogan? But more and more, I believe that we are a community in action, and I do believe that we continue to be in action. And I think it's something that we can maybe use to our advantage, especially with the YMCA partnership, and really trying to get our community in action. When that is up and running, I think would be really fantastic to do a campaign where, you know, we maybe have a competition to see how many minutes people can get on their Fitbits or some fun thing like that. To get us all back out and moving after all of this COVID shutdown stuff. So I don't know, what does everybody else think? Councillor Westgate.
Well, I think we should keep it right now. I don't think our community's ever been more in action, and we've had it for a long time. If somebody come up with something that was really outstanding, we could look at it, but a lot of thought went into that community in action quite a few years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I never thought I would. I remember saying, this is just not us, but it is us now. I completely agree. Any opposing views? Councillor Mitchell, did you want to add to the
Oh,
conversation?
not an opposing view, that's for sure. I'm right on board. It's we're definitely grown into our slogan, so I think we'll keep it for now.
Sounds good. I think probably the next term of council will be doing another strategic plan at the beginning, and we'll allow them to kind of maybe revisit the idea at that time. But I think for now, I think it's something that works for our community.
Great.
So we will move on to the question about the logo and the, I personally really like this for sure. I like that it matches our colors and it just is really nice. But what does council think about maybe a refresh of the circular yoke logo? Councillor Westgate, you look like you have an opinion on it.
We could look at something new and refresh it. I like the first one we had with, it had symbols on it and they actually stood for something, the farming and the community coming together. But the way it is, if you come up with a better idea or a better slogan, I would be fine with that.
So maybe staff could work on some ideas and bring that back to council?
Yeah, even if we
Sure.
went back to the old one with the symbol for farm and for city, for industrial and stuff. I don't know. I think slogans have got away from that now.
Are you talking about the original circular one? Was there a different one
Yes,
than what we're using right now?
I'm pretty sure.
Do you have an original pin?
Yeah, there was one, but no.
Our current one has farming and industrial.
Yeah, it does. And I thought that was,
and
but the other
hockey.
one stood out more, the farming and stuff, the hockey, the farming and industrial.
Stephanie, I'll have a look. I might have one on an old shirt.
That would
I
be
probably
great.
got information with the old symbol on it. I will look.
All right, so maybe that can just be a little project with some of our past counselors that have that information and Stephanie to work together on, and
I'll report back next meeting, hopefully.
Yeah. I personally love the idea of having the land acknowledgement at the new township hall and at the new hall. I thought that was a great way to partner, like begin our reconciliation and partnership with our First Nations peoples. So I really liked that idea as well. And yeah, it looks like the communications is going well as far as Facebook and website. That's always good news. One idea I had for the town of Watford 150th is to, and this is something that kind of came up when we were building the new township office, was to do a time capsule where we could have different service clubs and members of council, the schools put in something for maybe the 200th year would be kind of cool for them to open up 50 years later. Just a thought.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I love them. I think that they're fun, but I wouldn't recommend burying them. I know Brooke Elvingston buried one years and years ago, and it was ruined, and somebody had to go through and try to preserve some of the items in there. So it would be more maybe something that we could have in a safe or something in the township office, or something a little bit less porous because you'd hate to see all of the items destroyed. Anything else for that report? All in favor?
Back on the time check.
Yep.
Absolutely. It should go in the building up here. We should have it in a wall even, or
That's what we had said when when they were tearing down the old building. Frank Calipari was saying, oh, look, we found these old newspapers and we found this and we found that in the walls of the building. And we thought at that time it would be really neat to have it somewhere in the wall or something. And I'm sure that we can manage that. But I think it would be neat for the 150th anniversary. Can be like a 50-year thing. All right. We will, all in favor of receiving and filing that report. That is carried. And we will go on to the delegation of authority and planning decisions, that the report be received and filed as information. That is moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Westgate. Thank you. Any questions or comments on that report? Ms. Gubbles, do we have somebody from the county here to join us? There's Ken.
Yes, Ken's here, and I think he has a summary presentation, Mayor Rumba.
Perfect. Hi, Ken. How are you tonight?
Good evening, Mayor Rombouts and members of council. It's been a Warwick day. We've spent the afternoon with your staff, and I wasn't sure if it has been a day. I couldn't remember if I sent Lewis and Karen home, but I'm not sure if they're trying to sign into the meeting or not, but that's okay. I can be here just by myself. But if Ms. Gubbles could just activate the oh, perfect. There we go. She's just way ahead of me here. That's excellent. So I'm going to try to keep this relatively quick. Can you see that, Your Worship? Okay, great. So essentially, we're back to talk about what we had talked about before, which was the changes to the Planning Act on delegation of decision-making on some planning applications. And moreover, since we put that presentation together some time ago, the nature of planning has changed as of Thursday. So I'll attempt to give a little follow-up on that at the end. So we talked with you on Valentine's Day, and we talked about how the act changed, and Ms. Gubbles circulated a memo that I had done for all of the county clerks, as well as the minister's memo related to all of these act changes. And we're here to focus on the delegation of decision-making. And currently, you already have a number of decisions that are made by your Committee of Adjustments and Minor Variances and Consents. This would be an opportunity to either delegate some more decisions to the committee or delegate to staff. So the Act has enabled a couple of new minor delegations for temporary use bylaws and the lifting of holding provisions on the zoning map. So holding provisions are used to prevent building permits from occurring until servicing has been established in areas earmarked for growth. So you have some choices and some options to consider. And so let's talk about some of the advantages to delegations. Well, it reduces the number of reports and decisions that council has to make. and it helps reduce applicant timelines, but it also uses the in-house expertise of staff to render those decisions. And that can create timeline savings because they don't have to wait. There is always a bit of a lag time in terms of getting agendas published and getting reports made and approved and what have you. Applicants don't have to wait for that. It can be done by staff. They get their decision. And it does provide generally a consistent approach. Although, as I've always said, every application is reviewed on the basis of its merits. There is some disadvantage that council no longer has the decision-making authority. Now, you can revoke it, but we don't recommend taking that approach. If you're going to delegate, you should just delegate it. It creates challenges for applicants to know that there's consistent decision-making if you're every now and then suddenly saying, no, we're going to take the delegation back and it needs to come to council. And you also need to invariably trust staff or the committee to make the decision. And keep in mind, staff will make the decision on the basis of, what is consistent with the provincial policy statement and the official plans. But if that's not an issue, then there really isn't a disadvantage. So you have about, best guess 5 options. And as always, as I like to say to you, you can do nothing. You can leave it as is. No change would be made at all. You could allow staff to prepare some updates to the official plan that would put you in a position that you could reconsider doing nothing. This would get you basically set up to do another decision-making process at a later date, because maybe now is not the right time to do this. You're not going to get any advantage to it. There's not time savings, what have you. And number 2 is actually what we're recommending, because at least what it does is it sets you up to make the decision, because you can change your minds and do things later on. You could delegate you could pick and choose what gets delegated to staff or committee of adjustment. You could delegate it all to staff or committee based on what the new options are, or you could do a trial period. We don't really recommend a trial period because that creates a lot of legal challenges in terms of consistency of decisions. You're better off to just simply delegate it. So a couple things, food for thought. As I said before, you don't have to do anything, particularly in light of the announcement with Bill 109 on Thursday. And I'll get to that in a minute. But what we're suggesting to you is if you don't feel that you're going to have any time savings or benefits from delegating any of these tasks to staff or committee, at least tell us that you want us to do a policy update to your official plan to set the stage, and we'll do amendments and prepare them and start that process so that maybe down the road where there might be some benefit, you can reconsider. We talked about the trust part. I'm not going to belabor that point other than to say, I don't think that's really an issue based on council's reactions to the work we're doing. It's just something that we can provide you a communications tool if there's concern about not necessarily being in the know. And as I say, we can communicate that back to you by saying, here's how many decisions were made by staff over the past month, over the past quarter. We can do it very similar to some of the other communications tools we've been doing. The other thing is to think about not just about what your volume of decisions are today, but what you think it's going to be in the future. If growth is coming, maybe delegation is a good thing. You're setting yourself up so that as you get busier and bigger, you're getting ahead of it. But yet again, maybe it's not a big deal right now. This is where we get into the More Homes for Everyone plan and the act that came from the government of Ontario on Thursday. And one of the things that does is if you choose not to do anything, regardless, if the province of Ontario passes the More Homes for Everyone Act, one of the pieces of change in the Planning Act is that site plans will automatically be delegated to staff. So what will happen is any application after July the 1st automatically gets delegated to staff for decision making. It will increase the timeline for applications to be processed from 30 to 60 days. But here is the catch. If a decision hasn't been reached by day 61, there are penalties under the new provisions of the Planning Act that would come into effect, that the township has to start refunding money back to the applicant for not reaching a decision in time. And generally speaking, we're within our timelines. There's always one or two that's an outlier, but it's not an issue. But the other challenge, as we discussed in our meeting with your staff today, is that if there's a penalty, there's no interest in the province to think about these one or two situations that are sort of the one-offs that has some technical challenges that are outside of the timeline. You meet the timeline or there's a refund. So there's a lot to take into consideration. If you're going to delegate anything to committee of adjustment, the other thing you need to think about is, does the committee have the capacity? You just had a meeting. Councillor Westgate will recall my comment at the end of that meeting was, you did a year's worth of applications basically in one meeting. Are you meeting enough? Does the committee have capacity? Can they handle the increase in volume of channeling some new stuff there? And keep in mind, regardless of what decision you make, if the More Homes for Everyone plan is adopted, or the act is adopted, that delegation of site planning authority is going to happen to staff regardless. So as always, I wanted to bring this image back to remind you that you are driving the bus on this. You get to make some choices to a certain extent. It's a new graphic. I tried to make it a little bit prettier, but the point is council gets to drive the bus here. So we recommend that you accept the report for information. We're happy to, I'm happy to answer any of your questions and maybe give some advice and seek your feedback. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you so much. That was very helpful. Council, do you have any questions for Ms. Gubbles or Mr. Mellinson tonight on that? Or how does council want to move forward? Councillor Morris.
I strongly believe that as many decisions as possible should stay with the elected officials. We're the ones that answer to the taxpayer.
Okay, so would you just like to make a motion to receive and file the report? Does that go in line with what he's saying, Ken?
Well, I think what we're suggesting, if I can, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Morris, what we're suggesting is, if the feeling of council at this point is that you don't want to delegate anything, what we're suggesting is that you may want to have us do the official plan update to basically set out the ability for you to reconsider that in the future, because under the way the act changes are set up that took effect January 1st, you have to amend your official plan first before you can do anything. I'm not saying you're going to reconsider, but if you want to set it up so that you could, that has to happen in advance. So it might be worthwhile to do that work so that you're not committed to anything. We would bring those amendments to you, and it puts you in a position that down the road, if you want, if the council of the day wants to reconsider that position, it can, but it's not obligated to. And keep in mind, one of those delegations that we talked about, if the More Homes for Everyone plan, or act, I should say, is adopted, will happen regardless, because that will be an automatic decision of the province through its amendments to the Planning Act. But our recommendation to you is to at least do the official plan amendments, so that if you want to reconsider in the future, you can, but it would be essentially a status quo decision. You would retain the decision making until such time as you reconsider. It just puts you in a place that you can reconsider later on. I hope that makes sense.
Okay.
Councillor White, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I like Ken's suggestion that we keep the option open, but I'm along with Councillor Morris right now that I think we stay status quo, and that's been working fine. But having the option, it gives us the option in the future to reconsider it. We don't know what may come in the future, so I'd like to see that. I like Ken's recommendation that way.
Councillor Morris, is that what you were thinking in terms of keeping
No.
things status quo?
Actually, Mayor, I was just making a comment. I'm not making a motion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor White, did you want to make the motion then?
I can make the motion that we follow Ken's recommendation, but remain functioning the way that we are, but keep the option open that in the future it can be revisited if needed. So modifying the official plan, I guess, to reflect that.
And Councillor Mitchell?
I'll
Are you
I'll
seconding
second
that?
that.
Councillor
Yeah.
West, did you have a comment or something to add to the conversation?
I was just going to add or agree with Wayne, much the same. I think council should have the final say on most things, and on site plan approvals and stuff. It all comes back to us. We always pretty near in the committee of adjustment or whatever, go along with the county planner. Maybe I can remember a couple times where we didn't, and maybe we should have.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. I agree with you. I think it's good to have that option for future councils of the day to make any changes, or if we continue as a community in action and we get so big that it becomes cumbersome for council to be able to continue with this, then we can make some changes. So I think that's a good way to proceed. Any other comments? Councillor Westgate.
It's not overwhelming now. We did have six on the agenda the other night, but usually it's only one or two, and it's not every month we have a meeting even. So it's not that we're overworked at it.
That's good. Ms. Gubbles, are you, do you have any comments going towards this?
Thank you, Mayor Reynolds. No, it's council's decision, and we're happy to work within it. Of course, if we see operationally any challenges continuing to arise, we'll be sure to make you aware. But no issues or concerns.
Perfect. There's no other comments. All in favor of that motion then? That is carried. Thank you so much, Mr. Mullinson, for joining us tonight and for your presentation. As always, we welcome you, your wisdom at our table.
Well, the team looks forward to welcoming you into your new building. So we look
Yes.
forward to seeing you in person. Thank you and have a great night.
And please let the planners know we look forward to seeing them in person, and the public will be welcoming them back to the office in the new building 1 or 2 days a week, I believe. So we'll get that information out as soon as we have it.
Absolutely. Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you, you too. All right, council, we're going to move on to the cemetery caretaker contract renewal. So there is a recommendation that the Township of Warwick Cemetery Board recommends that Warwick Township Council that the proposed agreement with Keith's a cut above lawn care as per P&R -07-22 be approved by bylaw and executed by the mayor and CAO clerk. We need a mover and a seconder for that recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Morris and Councillor White. Questions or comments on that? Councillor Morris.
Just so everybody knows, this is just a 1 year. So the public knows the extension until we decide how we're going to handle it in the future.
That's perfect. I know every once in a while the cemetery board goes out for RFP and we re-examine that. So, but I think the current caretaker has been doing a great job. So, and so has our cemetery board. It's working out very nicely with all of the cemeteries under one board, I believe. All right, all in favor of that? That is carried. We will move on to the LCDS sidewalk cleaning proposal. Again, this is a welcome addition to our community where we have LCDS do a lot of the sidewalk cleaning and keep our streets and sidewalks litter free. Do we have a mover and a seconder for that resolution? Thank you, Councillor Westgate and Councillor Mitchell. Any questions or comments on that? All in favor? And if staff could please extend council's appreciation to that group for all that they do for our community, we would appreciate that. We will move on to the East Lambton Community Complex Capital Fundraising Campaign Report. We need a mover and a seconder to receive and file that report. Councillor Mitchell and Councillor White. Questions or comments on that? As a member of that committee, I will say it's been very exciting. We have a great committee. Councillor Morris.
Yeah, could we put something on our Facebook page or something like they used to have the thermometer showing how high you're getting close? People are asking me, where are we? And I don't really know.
Councillor or Ms. Gubbles, did you want to comment on that?
Sure, thank you, Councillor Morris. That's a great question, and the committee itself has, just speaking on behalf of them, received a few inquiries as well. We are putting together a public launch idea and date and campaign where the thermometer will be released. So at
Okay,
this time,
good.
we are keeping the information a little bit, but there are teasers available of donations available on the campaign's social media site. It has its own Facebook and website. And soon enough, absolutely, we'll be sharing that thermometer type idea. And anyone who's interested in making donations, of course, is welcome to contact a committee member or the chairs of the committee.
Yes, it will be very exciting once we get the public launch of this campaign going. We're right now in the quiet phase, but it's very exciting. I will say that I am proud to be from Warwick Township. We have an amazing, generous community. All right, all in favor of receiving and filing that report? That is carried. We will move on to the Nauvoo Road crosswalk and Seven Feathers crosswalk. So there is a recommendation that Warwick Township proceed with the installation of the Nauvoo Road rainbow pedestrian crosswalk, and that Warwick Township Council directs staff to consult with local Indigenous communities regarding a decorative crosswalk elsewhere. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Mitchell, I'm assuming you're moving that?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. And do we have a seconder to that? Thank you, Councillor White. Any questions or comments on that? All in favor of that motion? That is carried. We will go on to the committee and other minutes. So that we have the minutes of the Parks and Rec Committee meeting of March 23rd. We need a mover and a seconder to receive and file those minutes. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Westgate. Thank you. Chair White, did you have anything that you'd like to mention from that meeting?
No, just I think it's there, and thank the committee for all their work this year. And hopefully we'll be seeing a lot of activities this summer that we didn't see in the past.
That is great. I'm sure Mr. Chamney is excited as the committee is. We do have an amazing committee for our Parks and Rec. We have some great community members on that. All right, all in favor of receiving and filing those? That is carried. Is there any new business tonight? Seeing none, we will need a motion to go into the closed meeting session for all of the reasons listed on our agenda today. Thank you, Councillor Mitchell and Councillor Westgate, all in favor? That is carried. So for all of our public viewing on YouTube, we thank you for your attendance and we wish you a very healthy and happy week to come. And we will be returning into open session, but just to confirm some bylaws and do some housekeeping stuff and then adjourning. So we will not be returning to YouTube in order to do that. So we wish you a good evening.